If you've ever been out on a mountain bike road trip and wished you'd packed something you looked at before you left.
How are you supposed to get anything done with these hacks?
Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling us what that item was. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Today we're going to be going over some fun things that we think you should pack on your next mountain bike road trip. Before we get into the products that we're going to be showcasing today, we would like to thank CompetitiveCyclist.com for helping us make this video. They are helping us out with a lot of products here and also helping you guys out with a 15% off discount from your first purchase if you use Loam Wolf 15 at checkout on any applicable items. So we're gonna start out this pack list with the most common items that I would suggest you bring. Usually those are also going to be the most affordable items, so that's definitely a plus as well. But we're going to go from kind of like your must-haves to the MacGyver. Maybe you really want to be prepared for just about any situation. So first up, I would say mandatory things to pack are going to be right here at the front. Tire sealant, chain lube, and some sort of a flat repair solution, plugs, anything like that. All important things to have. Something to note here, we've got two examples of chain lubes that Competitive sells, a wet lube and a wax lube. So depending on where you're traveling to, it might be different than your home conditions, right? If you live in the desert and you're going to a potentially wet area, you might want a wet lube. And if you live in a wet area and you're going to the dry desert, you're not gonna want a wet lube, you're gonna want a dry wax lube. So that's something worth considering. So as far as sealant goes, we're big fans of packing something like this along in our hip pack, our hydration pack, whatever it might be, especially when you're out in unknown areas, right? You may not have the right tire pressure, the right tire casing for those situations, like you have your setup dialed for home, and having some extra sealant that you could readily dump in and fill your tire up with is great. Having something a little bit larger that you can keep in your vehicle is going to be good. That way you can refill that, or if you completely toast a tire and you need to put a new one on, also on the checklist of stuff to take, you've got the ability to get a whole new tire set up tubeless and you won't burn through that and then be screwed out on the trail. Now it's also important to make sure that your tire repair kit, whatever that might be, if you're an inner tube guy, if you are someone who uses plugs or other sorts of things, make sure those are stocked. You know, you don't want to open it and find out you've only got one bacon strip or Stan's dart plug out there and you're far from home and any other bike shop. So check off what you got, make sure you're full. We are big fans of this stuff here, Goop. In an emergency situation, this stuff will seal a lot of holes. It's like CO2 charged foam, so you actually shake it up, stick that right on your valve stem and just fill that tire up. There's a pretty crazy, like shaving cream, almost like foam, that just fills that tire and will work its way into the holes nicely. This has saved us a lot out in the woods. So, okay, we've got sealant, chain lube, spare tire, as I kind of mentioned. From there, I think chain links and chain are going to be important ones to have. You can see we've got a couple of SRAM Eagle chains. Since we're going to a shootout with Shimano and SRAM equipped bikes, we've got another bag full of Shimano chains and links. So important to have that sort of stuff. It would suck to go somewhere really awesome and not have something so simple as a chain. And as you guys probably are aware right now, things are hard to find out there, and small little towns that are mountain bike tourist destinations may be out of stock on a lot of basic stuff. So traveling with a chain and some links is always a good idea. Another thing, okay, moving up a little bit into the how likely are you going to use it situation, is a brake rotor. We like to travel with brake rotors, especially if we're going somewhere that's very rocky, really aggressive. You know, it only takes one rock or one crash to mess up a rotor. Maybe it gets roached or contaminated. Having an extra rotor is important. So for that reason, we always travel with a couple SRAM and a couple Shimano rotors, because again, we usually have a lot of different bikes with us. Also, brake pads, pick your set, whatever type of brake you have. It's always good to have a backup set of pads. Again, maybe someone contaminates your rotor, chain lube goes wild, Maybe you drive through some crazy thing on the road and oil and paint or something get all over your brakes. If you got a spare set of rotors and pads, you're good to go. Also, a bleed kit. We definitely like to travel with a bleed kit. You know, if you travel from a very low elevation up to somewhere in the mountains, you could have an issue, especially if you're going to a bike park and you're doing tons of laps. You know, it would just suck to have to pay an exorbitant rate to have your brakes bled, maybe even be without a bike for a full day if that local shop is totally backed up, or have to buy a kit somewhere. So traveling with a bleed kit, make sure you put them in a Ziploc bag if it's already open, because that stuff leaks even if you close the lid. Companies, can you guys make a better container for your brake fluid? That would be awesome, thanks. All right, speaking of brakes, this is getting out there a little bit, but we have been screwed before. Maybe taking an extra brake lever. Okay, this is a spare lever that we're taking, and we're actually gonna take a whole extra brake with us. There's a pretty affordable set of Shimano brakes that we'll highlight down below. If it's just something that you want to take along, whether it's a crash that you bend or snap something, or you know your master cylinder or calipers freeze up, it's nice to be able, again, to have something if you need it. Perhaps you've upgraded your brakes in the past and somewhere deep in a bin you have an old set of brakes. You don't throw it along. Bring that rotor, bring the adapter, and your whole brake setup, and you've got a spare. Hopefully you won't need it, but just in case you do, you're safe. Another item, this here is a cheap little toolbox. I'm pretty sure I picked this thing up at Harbor Freight, real cheap. Spare tube, again, that kind of goes back to our flat stuff. Something I didn't mention in the lube section is this WPL, it's Whistler Performance Lube. They call it a fork boost lube. It really works quite well on suspension, especially on seat posts. If you've got a seat post that's acting up a little bit, maybe it's sticky, a little slow to return. Obviously there could be other issues going on, but we've seen a lot of seat posts come back to life just by applying some of this Whistler Performance Lube on there. So check that stuff out, could be worthwhile. Tire levers, always important, gotta have those. Spare set of cleats. If you are a clipless rider, they don't have to be new or fancy or whatever, but you never know, right? Who's lost a set of cleats or a cleat out on a trail before? If you have, leave a comment. I know it's happened to many of us, or maybe just one screw and then the whole thing's shifting around. So extra cleats, always a good thing to have. Obviously, you want to bring Allen wrenches to make any mechanical changes or tunes on the bike. This is a very cool multi-tool that also has one of the tools specifically I think you guys should have. This is the Lezyne multi-chain plier. It'll hold SRAM or chain master links here. It's got a chain brake tool in it as well. But what I really wanted to show you guys is this rotor truing tool right here. Having spare rotors is great, but sometimes you can straighten a rotor, and there are more simple rotor truing tools available. You can check those out at Competitive Cyclist, but this has a lot of different tools, including a rotor truing tool. So you just will slide that on the rotor and you can pry it back and forth. So if that thing gets really hot and warps, you know, at your 25th run of the day at the local bike park, always a cool thing to get you back up and running. Now, something else that we have broken on trips before are pedals. So whether you're a clipless or flat rider, you know, if you bend a spindle or anything else, sometimes you could be going into unfamiliar territory, right? Maybe you like clipping in at home, but you go to an area that's really wet and muddy, unfamiliar territory, and you want to ride in flats because it'll give you a little bit more confidence. Not bad to have a spare set of pedals and possibly different type. From there, shock pump's always good. Again, sometimes these things, they just lose air over time. Perhaps you didn't check it before you trip, perhaps elevation changes, etc. Or perhaps the terrain's just so different from your natural or local riding at home that you need to make an adjustment. So always bring a shock pump. From there, I've got a little light. This is a very cool light and motion system. I think it's like 70 bucks on Competitive's website. This is cool because one, it gives you a work light. So if you need to work on something at the vehicle. Two, if you're unfamiliar with the area, how long a ride might take, maybe you're really trying to squeeze in that second ride of the day and you don't know where you're going, you could be caught out after dark, and having a simple little light like this could really be a helpful way to find yourself back, be a signal for help, or just give you some extra light when you need to make a repair back in the parking lot. A bike lock, obviously a lot of bike racks have bike locks on them. And those work okay for buying you a few extra minutes if you're getting a burrito or going to the bathroom at the gas station. But I would definitely suggest the more locks and the thicker the locks, the better. It just buys you more time, a little bit more peace of mind. So always good to have an extra couple of locks. I know we travel with like 3 or 4. Even if you have bikes inside your van, lock them up. There's a lot of crazy people out there. So protect your investment. Nothing would ruin your trip more than trying to go out and go for a ride and find out you got no bike to ride. So I think that is everything, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in for this video. Let us know if there's anything that we missed that you always pack along on your mountain bike trips. We would love to hear what we could add to our list. Also, don't forget to use Loam Wolf 15 at checkout for a 15% discount on any applicable items in this list and more at competitivecyclist.com. So thanks again for watching, guys, and hopefully we'll see you out on the road.